Hey everybody, welcome to the Steelers Show. I'm Chris. I got Paul with me. Joe may or may not be here, but honestly, Paul, after watching that game on Sunday, I almost wasn't here. That was rough, dude.
I will play the role of Mr. Positive that Joe usually fills.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling better than I did the other day, but my goodness, what a mess that was. Steelers lose 30-7 to the 49ers. Honestly, Paul, I think we called it. I mean, we both naively thought the Steelers were going to win this game, but I think I said, if they can't stop the run, and if they put Brock Purdy in bad situations, they could win the game. If they do better on defense, they do either one. The defense was pretty awful, and Brock Purdy wasn't. I mean, he's never going to be at the same level as Pat Mahomes, but man, Paul, he didn't make mistakes, and that's what I was saying before. That's what made him look good last year. And I know
Yeah,
he was hurt on the offseason, but man, he did what he needed to do. I mean, they're a really good football team. It's crazy.
they are. And I think, listening to everybody the past couple days, at least in Steeler Nation, everybody needs to calm down because, yes, we clearly messed our pants in this game. But at the same token, don't forget that San Francisco is a legitimate Super Bowl contender. So we can't forget that. We were up against one of the top tier teams in the league, and we were ill prepared, and we looked like fools. It's not the end of the world. It's not time to give up on Pickett. It's not time to give up on the season. It's not time to burn down all the bridges in Pittsburgh. We looked really bad, but they're a really, really good team. And for as good as they are, it's very easy. I'm not trying to knock Brock Purdy, but again, with the team he has around him, his job is just don't make mistakes. And that's exactly what you want for a young quarterback. Just be in a position where just don't make mistakes and the rest of the team will handle it.
Well, I'm past burning the city down. I think I don't think we have to definitely go that far. I mean, I was annoyed after the game, but this kind of reminded me. I'm kind of looking this up so I can quote you the accurate thing. But there's two games this reminded me of, and I'll be positive. I am going to flame some people because I think people do deserve it. But you look, and I actually remember watching this game. 97. The Steelers lost the Cowboys a season before that in the Super Bowl. I don't know if you remember this, Paul, but the 1 year later, after the Super Bowl, the Cowboys opened the year over in Pittsburgh. And the Steelers may not have been a Super Bowl team at that time, but, they were 4-0 in the preseason. They looked pretty good. Cowboys come in, it's the Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin Cowboys. They beat Pittsburgh 37-7. Similar game. Super Bowl team comes in, whips you all over the place. The Steelers end up 11-5 that year. And, that's after losing by 30 to a Super Bowl team to start. You know what I mean? So it's not over. You know what I mean?
No, by no means.
And
I think the rest of the season is going to depend on what lessons can they all learn because there's a semester worth of lessons to be taken away from that game, and the degree to which they learn those lessons will determine if we can bounce back from this or not.
yeah, and one other thing about that year, I was looking this up, is I couldn't remember how far they made it in the playoffs. They ended up losing the AFC title game. So it wasn't just they went 11-5. I mean, that was the year they lost. They were at home against Denver, where Elway beat them on his way to his first Super Bowl win. The other year, I believe it was 89. Remember, it was Steelers hosting Cleveland. They lost 51-0 in the first game. They ended up going to playoffs. That was that strange year where they went down to Houston and Bubby Brister beat Warren Moon in the playoffs. So and then lost to the Browns by 51. And could you imagine if that happened this year? I mean, it's time to, stop watching football and start watching, 90 Day Fiance on Sundays or something. So all is not lost. There are a couple things that bother me. I just want to run these by you. I thought Kenny
Just
Pickett.
a couple?
Well, yeah, a lot. I thought Kenny Pickett was awful. Now, I thought he missed some throws. It was. I think part of the problem, and I'm not going to say they should trade Kenny Pickett or anything. I think part of the thing is I think we got suckered in by the preseason where we said, oh my goodness, this series is going to be really good. And, I heard this being mentioned before too. The Steelers had to change their offensive philosophy. Preseason was a great place to do it. You weren't seeing the type of defenses you were seeing. First of all, San Francisco, really good defense. But even if they played San Francisco in the preseason, in the preseason, you don't show people your exotic defenses and everything. So Pickett was going up against more of a blander defense. So great. He still played well. And it's a sign that he's definitely an NFL quarterback for him to do well, even in a situation like that. But I think we kind of fell in love with the preseason. I think the players were reading the press clippings. I was seeing interviews like Mark Caboy, the guy who used to write for the Pittsburgh Papers, now for the Athletic. I saw an interview with him. He's grump, man. I mean, he's going to tell it like it is. He was talking about how the Steelers were so good on like a national interview. And I think the players may have started reading the press clippings. I know you're a Kenny Pickett fan. Here's where I'm going to get critical about Kenny Pickett. Who are the Steelers, Paul? Are they a throwing team or a running team? Have we figured this out? Just in general. I don't know, but I want to ask if are we getting a true indication even from the team who they are, who they think they are?
No, and I think a lot of obviously Matt Canada seems to think that we're a passing team first. I mean, first drive, 3 pass plays. Second drive, 2 pass plays, 1 run. I mean, the first quarter, 11 pass plays, 4 run plays. So clearly, Canada has this idea that if we establish the pass, we can then do the run rather than the other way around.
And don't take this as a defense, but when I envision Kenny Pickett, I think he could be a good NFL quarterback. I don't think he has to play like Pat Mahomes. I'm not saying he's not good. Look, and you have morons online saying, oh, they should pick Brock Purdy in 20 instead of Kenny Pickett. Well, nobody knew anything about Brock Purdy at the time. But the thing that I liked about San Francisco, now San Francisco's got better horses to do what Pittsburgh's trying to do. I keep hearing from different places, oh, the Steelers are going to try to be a run team. Man, Jalen Warren looked good, and Najee was looking good. They're going to run instead of the pass and everything. And they had, like this Isaac Seminole, the guy they picked up, he's a much better run blocker. And I know they got behind against San Francisco, but in the first quarter, even though it was awful, it was 17-0, Paul. You could run the ball and come back in the game like that. Conceivable.
Yeah.
They ended up throwing the ball 46 times and running it 10 times. And I'm not saying Kenny Pickett can't win like that, but that's not the game that you want Kenny Pickett to play in. They're trying, in theory, and I've heard this, and I think you're right. I think there might be a little bit of a disconnect between Canada and either Tomlin or the front office and what they're trying to do. But you keep hearing, oh, they're going to run, they're going to run, they're going to run. And then I think in today's NFL, everyone wants to pass. And maybe the Steelers are like, oh, we feel weird if we're not passing. It's like you're in junior high, and if you wear a different shirt than everybody else, instead of being like, oh, this is the shirt I'm wearing at school, you're almost like, well, everyone else is wearing the T-shirt or the tank tops. I remember wearing the tank top, and you're like, I don't look good in the tank top. You know what I mean? And I think the Steelers like you watch like the Chiefs and the Bills for all around the place. You're like, holy crap, we got to do this. And I'm excited about Calvin Austin. I don't think Calvin Austin played bad at all on Sunday, but I think everyone's like, oh, this is Tyreek Hill. He may never be Tyreek Hill, but he could be a good player. And it's like we just we clutch at these strings without realizing who they are. Um, I don't think being a captain means that much. But the other thing that really bugged me was, okay, they make Kane Pickett the only captain, which is fine. I think he could be a leader and everything. But then, I don't know if you noticed this. Last year, Pickett only threw 2 interceptions in the last 8, 9 games of the year. That's why they won. Pickett controlled the ball. He didn't turn it over. That's a good habit to get yourself into. Josh Allen couldn't do that Monday night. That's why the Bills lost. He couldn't control the ball. He couldn't not turn the ball over like a crazy man. I saw Pickett throw into coverage a ton of times. And that's part of the reason why he had 2 interceptions. He's in his second year. Let's calm down. Let's don't trade him or anything. But, Paul, why isn't it that when Pickett threw his first pass in the coverage or for interception, why couldn't, when he went to the sidelines, Canada or Tom got in his face and said, look, last year you threw the ball away. Just throw the ball away. It's fine. Don't try to do too much. Because Pickett looked confused. He was like, well, should I throw it away or should I try and make a hero play? Why? I mean, it's his second year as a quarterback. Why isn't somebody just sitting him down? They don't have to yell at him or scream at him or take his job away. But nobody's giving him feedback.
Again, and that comes to, and again, all the talk about we should have taken Brock Purdy. If you swap the two quarterbacks, I bet you Pickett looks like Joe Montana on Sunday and Purdy looks like a chaotic mess. That's a fine, well-oiled machine in San Francisco. Pickett's running for his life. He's got gold helmets in his face. He's got pressure all over the place. Made some bad decisions. Usually he's good at throwing to the exact spot. It wasn't working. But again, this second-year quarterback, establish the run so you can open up the pass. You've got to stick to that and not abandon. I mean, they didn't even try to start with it. I mean, only one run in the first 2 drives. They didn't even try to establish the run.
Well, and again, I'm not saying cut him or trade him or anything. They got to get this crap right. Because if they don't get this crap right, you got to sit there and say, maybe we need a new quarterback or maybe we need a new offensive coordinator. Like, if this happens for a month or two, and again, we're going to talk about the Browns game. I'm getting very nervous about the Browns game, to be honest with you. And I'm not saying they need to win the next 10 games in a row or I'm mad. But, man, if they keep this stuff up, and, I think you're putting way too much trust in Kane Pickett where, yeah, make him a starter. It's fine. But, they go from at the end of last year going, all right, can you work with Matt Canada? My understanding is if Kane Pickett said no, Canada was gone. And we get this, oh, we like working together. Man, we're committed to each other and everything else. It didn't look like they were committed to each other on Sunday. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, this whole creative offense, I saw no signs. I mean, even just looking at some of their third down plays, I mean, it's just some of the same, it's third down, so let's throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage and hope. I mean, it's seeing the same tendencies in the play calling, and it's for a first year, when he was a first year player, of course he's gonna, I'm gonna look up to my offensive coordinator. Tomlin's got to intervene and just say, look, we thought it was because Ben was getting old, and there's probably a lot to that, but we're not. And all these changes we heard about, all the chains are off and it's so much more creative, and it comes game time and that all disappeared.
Well, I think yeah. They got down by a lot and they're like, oh crap, what are we going to do now? But don't get away from your team. And again, I'm not the world's biggest Najee fan. Najee didn't have bad stats the few times he carried the ball. Why don't you freaking run the ball? It's just.
If you take out his 124-yard run, he didn't do much. But still, it's by that point, I mean, you should have started with the running back punching, not wait until the game's getting out of hand and, I guess we'll just try to run it too now. I mean, even Big Ben, I mean, he wasn't – the offense rode on Jerome Bettis, not Ben, to start. I I'm still convinced Pickett's the future, but you've got a running back like Najee Harris. He's the workhorse right now. Pickett should be in a spot of just where Brock Purdy is. Just don't make mistakes.
Here's
Don't
the
put
other
that
thing.
pressure on.
Here's the other thing that bothers me. I love Cam Hayward. I can't say anything bad about Cam Hayward. But I don't know if you noticed this part, because I checked after a while. I wasn't really angry. I was just more like, whatevs, you know. So Cam Hayward, I see him going back to the bench, and Cam looked old. Cam's still a really good football player, but he got hurt pretty bad. So you watch the bench, and I'm thinking, man, he's going to be out for a while. 3 plays later, he's back on the field. And, the announcer's like, whoa, Cam Hayward's back in, Maybe we'll give him the spark he needs. He got hurt the first play afterwards. I know how it works, Paul. And think about any company. You have that, veteran that's good. Sometimes you get leeway. If you want a certain job, you get that job because you're a veteran and everything. Why didn't the coach stop him from coming back out, on the field and say, look, bud,
Yes.
down by 17. You're not doing too. Just take the game off. You know what I mean? And it's not because Cam Hayward's a liability, or it's because Cam Hayward stinks or anything. I mean, Cam was hurt. He looked hurt. Why are you playing the game?
Yeah, and again, I know these are grown men, but football players are always going to say they're good to go out. Somebody has to be the voice of reason and say, appreciate your competitive nature, but no.
And, here's the other thing. And you and I, we don't get tons of listeners. So, I mean, we could probably talk about what we talked about on the way back from practice. But we had a pretty animated discussion or right back from the practice we covered. George Pickens is all the talent in the world. I'm not going to start railing on George Pickens. Let's be honest, Paul, and this is going to sound incredibly mean. You and I sat there and listened to George Pickens being interviewed after that practice. George Pickens does not sound like a smart man. Okay, you know what I mean? He's a young guy, and pretty much the short version of what we talked about was like, oh my gosh, he's sliding like Chase Claypool, Martavis Bryant, Antonio Brown. I mean, he's going to be that young fly receiver, has all the talent in the world, but ends up running his way out of Pittsburgh. Now, I will say, I think George Pickens has some drawbacks, to be honest with you. Most notably, in that a ton of separation from guys. But, you and Joe got mad because he didn't want to talk to the media. What was he going to say, Paul, to be honest with you? What could he have added if he gave his viewpoint? Now, he was upset because he wasn't getting the ball enough. I think it's arguable if he had a good point there or not. But I'm a media person. Yeah. If I cover the Steelers on a day-by-day basis, it'd be nice if all 53 guys came around me and said, "Hey, please ask us questions." But from that time you were over there, we had 2 interviews after practice, and everyone else pretty much ran off. It doesn't happen like that. I'm annoyed with George Pickens for other reasons. If he doesn't want to talk to the media, who cares? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, Robinson was targeted 8 times. Pickens was targeted 7 times. So it's not like he was completely ignored. But my fear with Pickens, again, with all the talent in the world, he's kind of in that Chase Claypool lane where he's acting out of his potential rather than his accomplishments. It's like, George, do something on the field and then you can act like a diva. Don't act like a diva before you've accomplished anything.
Yeah, but you look at media. I mean, Ryan Clark, who a former Steeler, now he's a little biased because he used to play for the Steelers. Ryan Clark compared him to Justin Jefferson, the best receiver in the league. And, the Steelers' offense is young. They have the potential of being a great offense. They're not quite there yet. And I guess the bottom line, I'm kind of miffed at the coaches for not understanding that to say, okay, look, you guys have all the talent in the world. You guys can be really great together, but we got to kind of slap in the behind if you're not, doing well from time to time. And we get this thing where, Big Ben got so much credence over his like big career with the Steelers and everything. And some critics of Big Ben said, "Hey, he was hard to approach at the end. You couldn't come up to him and say, 'Hey, dude, you should do this way.'" And maybe they feel nervous about Pickett or Pickens or something. I don't know how much correction they're getting. I'm not sure. Paul, this league's about adjusting at halftime. What are we doing at halftime? And I don't want to speak the whole time about offense. Offense is here, but man, that deep. I mean, T.J. Watt looked amazing. It wasn't for T.J. Watt, they got him 60 points. The run defense. I mean, I don't think it was ever promised that they would have an outstanding run defense. The 49ers carved them up. And I know they got good run offense. I know Christian McCaffrey's good. 49ers have a pretty good offensive line, even after giving up sacks to T.J. Watt. But you couldn't stop him at all.
No, and usually the Steelers do pretty well with stopping these big-name running backs. I feel like over the past few years, we've been able to keep them under 100 yards, keep them in check. And McCaffrey just ran all over.
And, I didn't catch the quote, but apparently Patrick Pearson gave the 49ers some billboard material before the game. The 49ers must have listened to it because they target Pearson a lot. A couple of plays, Pearson looked good. He got burned pretty bad. He had one of the touchdown passes. And Brandon Ayuk for the 49ers is a pretty good receiver, but they made Brandon Ayuk look like Jerry Rice. And, I don't think Joey Porter Jr., he probably wasn't up to speed enough to be your number one corner. He didn't play that much. And you're, a long veteran and everything, but it's just like we got all this hype, man. And I know it's one game, and hopefully, Pearson gets 10 picks against the Browns, but another guy. I mean, Alex Highsmith made a couple nice tackles. You paid Highsmith. I know, T.J. Watt's not going to get 3 sacks per game, but you paid T.J. Watt, and T.J. Watt's playing nuts every game. Minka had to, since nobody else on the Steelers defense wanted to stop the run, Minka had to kind of do run support a lot more. That's why you didn't see him do the crazy stuff he does in the secondary. But, I mean, Minka played well. I mean, it didn't show up as much in the stat book. Alex Highsmith, man, sorry, you got your money, and you're not going to get a sack every game, but it looked pedestrian.
Create some havoc, at least.
Yeah. I mean, don't look at it and say, well, I'm a starting linebacker in the NFL now. I need my money. No, you got paid to be you weren't a difference maker at all. And I love Alex Highsmith's story. I love he's a man of faith and all this other stuff, but you're not playing. Levi Wallace looked awful. I mean, he kind of made like a gentleman's decision to run away from a tackle once. And, I mean, as a he's like some of those plays, and you can't just cut everybody after a game, but he's like, some of those plays in the past, that's a cuttable offense. And it doesn't matter if you're a starting cornerback or not. I mean, Levi Wallace made some crazy bad plays. Punter, Presley Harvin, I love a lot of things. It's fun that he's a big guy. He's fun. He's a person of color. It's fun that he likes playing classical music. I love his story. But Harvin was awful. I mean,
Presley, could you punt more than 25 yards, please?
Yeah. I mean, I love that you're a culture guy. I love your story. There's a lot I love about you, but you still got to punt the freaking ball. I mean, and I don't know what happened to Brendan Mann. I really am playing competition, so I'm not saying he should have got the job, but you might need to bring a punter in. I don't know, man.
Instead of punting, could you just have strong arm Mason just chuck the ball down the field instead of just like when you play at recess, you don't kick off, you just throw it to the other team. You can throw it farther than 25 yards.
I gotta tell you, back to Kenny, the play where he had Deontay in the end zone for a touchdown. He threw it behind him, and Deontay was actually open that play. I like I said, it's not time to get rid of Kenny Pickett, but Kenny's got to start playing. I mean, it's his second year, and and again, I'm not saying Kenny throw it 60 times against the Browns. Don't turn the ball over. Have a freaking possession. And Tomlin actually talked about that in the press conference. He was mad at the offense. He's like, sustain the drive. Into the first half before they got that late touchdown, it was 199 yards to 1 at one point in the second quarter. It was 1 yard. They got a first down near the end of the first half, which was crazy. I mean, sustain a drive.
I mean, at the end of the day, our special team stunk. Harvin stunk. Our play calling was a mess. Pickett was not good. I mean, if you look at his stats, it wasn't. I mean, certainly had a better game than Burrow and Allen. We're not ready to give up on those guys. Sacked 5 times. The offensive line stunk. We couldn't run the ball. The defensive line stunk. The inside linebacker stunk. TJ was the only guy who gets a pass for this week. And ultimately, for me, I mean, as much as I love him, there is a head coach to this team who needs to be the head coach right now. And not just delegate, but be the head coach. That we were out-coached, outmanned every facet of this game on Sunday. And Tomlin needs to step up and coach this team for Monday.
Yeah, I agree with you. Tom's got a good pedigree. I know if they ever got rid of him, Tom would get a job pretty soon. I get all of that. But, after the game, Mike Tomlin's criticizing the offense. Okay, I know he can't have a relationship and all this other stuff. Couldn't you call and say, doggone, get a first down? I mean, don't make these, comments to the media after the game. Can't you pick up the phone? I mean, make a freaking adjustment or something. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, he acts like he's powerless to override Canada's play calling. Like, you're the head coach. You can override anything that's being done with this team.
Mike Tomlin's tough. I know he runs. I mean, heck, the practice we saw was a tough practice. It's not like he's a pushover. I wonder if he. This is going to be mean. Is he he's a tough coach, but he's a player's coach? Like, I saw an interview with Najee Harris that where Najee was like, man, this guy invites me over for supper and everything. And that's great. Sometimes that endear a young player to a team. I'm not saying don't invite any players over or anything else like that. But I'm wondering if Tom is a tough coach, but maybe he's a coach that feels reluctant to really get after where, yeah, he'll ride him in practice, he'll have tough, he'll make him better players. But when it comes to in-game adjustments, is he really doing that, Is he saying, right, hey, Cam Hayward, you're hurt, bud, sit down. Yes, you're great. If you're healthy, yes, you'll play every play. We love you. But, don't go back on the field. Or go to Kane Pick and say, dude, don't throw it in the double coverage. I mean, that's a conversation. That's not, hey, adjust your pivot point or whatever. Was he having that discussion? I don't know.
That's my question. And again, I'm a Tomlin advocate, and I'm not saying get rid of him, but this is the time, this is the week where, as the head coach, and he doesn't have to have some profanity-laced tirade, but say, look, y'all got in over your heads. You listened to the hype that we're going to be the Cinderella story of the season. First opportunity on the field, you played a legit Super Bowl team. They showed you who you are. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to just like, oh, it's this person's fault, that, or are we all going to look in the mirror, take the responsibility, and be better? And here's what we have to do to be better.
And you're right. They are a Super Bowl team. you know, again, we picked the Steelers to win a close game, but we say, hey, don't be surprised if San Francisco wins this. But if it's the NFL and you're a contending team, yeah, you're going to lose games. You're not going to win every game. But that game had to feel, Paul, it was like, from my work, I go to football games on occasion, like high school games, and or like college. You get some games between a really powerful team and a really crappy team, and the one team wins by a ton. That should not happen in the NFL. You know what I mean? Hey, if San Francisco, they're going to beat you, but they beat you to the point where it's almost like Ohio State and Akron or something. It was just ridiculous. I don't know, man.
I mean, that's a game where what would you rather do? I mean, you think about the logistics of how Sunday could have played out. We're falling behind fast, so let's just start chucking the ball all over the place. Or you can say, you know what, this game is clearly past us, but how about instead of losing like we're chumps, how about we at least make it a respectable score, and let's hand the ball off, establish the run. Let's put 17 points on the board. Yeah, we still lose, but it'll look a whole lot better than what actually happened.
Well, and let's talk about this upcoming game. So, a week ago today, we talked about how, man, this is going to be like a coming out coronation party. I don't know. I don't even know how Judge is going to win this game anymore. Steelers host the Browns. Browns won their first game. I think there's a little caveats we got to talk about. They beat Cincinnati 24-3, and people are like, whoa, Cincinnati's a good team. Paul, it reminded me, I had that game on too at the same time as the Steelers one. I got to be honest with you. What happened last year when the Steelers opened the year against the Bengals? Joe Burrow had appendicitis. He missed preseason. He came in and he looked rough. I mean, yeah, the Steelers had a really good defense against him that game, but it looked rough. And the Bengals will be back, but the Browns took advantage of it. It was raining that day. It was weird. In Columbus and Pittsburgh, it wasn't raining at all. Cleveland, it looked like Noah's Ark. I don't know why the weird in different parts. But, that hurt the Bengals. It was funny. The Browns offense played good. They scored 24 points, but they didn't look dominating by any chance. I thought Deshaun Watson was okay at best. He wasn't that great. I mean, he threw a pick. But here's the thing that concerns me. And I told you guys this. I didn't think the Browns were that good, but they invested a lot in a pass rush. They've got Jim Schwartz, who's a lot better defensive coordinator than they've had in the past. They've actually done some exotic things where they picked up a couple of good defensive linemen that could blitz. That made Joe Burrow's life tough. Now, San Francisco did that against Pittsburgh. That made Kenny Pickett's life tough. Run offense. Browns have arguably the best running back in the league.
Yeah.
This game's not going to be easy. I mean, yeah,
No.
I mean, the Steelers look better at nights. The Steelers kind of bounced back in their history from awful games with a much better game. But, man, I wouldn't necessarily chalk this up in the win column at all. I don't know, to be honest with you. Now, I think it's very conceivable that we can go back to the end of last year where the Steelers and Kenny Pickett outclassed Deshaun Watson. I don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, it's what you just said. Are they going to really go back and say, let's get better? Because on paper, they're a better team than the Browns. But I don't know, man. I mean, you don't have...
Well, on paper, the offensive line should be better, but it sure seemed like it was worse than last year.
Well, here's going to be an interesting thing. Neither one of us are a huge fan of Chuks Okafor, but he might be out. He had concussion. There was some talk that maybe either Dan Moore moves to right tackle, you get Broderick Jones his first start at left tackle, or you flip those guys. Is that better? Like, we've noticed this in, when we saw the training camp in person, Chuks looked horrible. I mean, I'm being blunt and honest. I mean, maybe it's addition by subtraction. I hate to say that, but Broderick Jones and Dan Moore are better at tackles. I don't know, man. I will say, and neither one of us are the big Deontay Johnson fans. I think Calvin Austin can be okay at number 3. I mean, you're losing some when you don't have Deontay Johnson. I don't think that loss is going to be as bad as we think it's going to be. Allen Robinson's going to be okay. Now, George Pickens, you got to produce, bud. The Cam Hayward thing hurts. I mean, I don't know how else to say that, but I don't know. What do you think now about this game? What's your pick?
I have to stick with my original prediction that the Steelers win, unless there's a really deep heart to heart between Tomlin and Canada. We're not putting up 21 points. It's going to have to be a tough slugfest. It's a winnable game, but it's also a very losable game. And I'm deeply worried about the pass rush. The offensive line couldn't pass block, they couldn't run block. That's going to be the big question mark hanging over this game for me. Like that, the very first snap the Steelers have, I'm going to be holding my breath.
One injury note that might be interesting: Jack Conklin, one of the Browns' better-known offensive linemen, he got hurt. He's out for the year. Expecting to start DeJuan Jones. You may not know him that well, Paul. He was a mid-round draft pick. He came from Ohio State. He's that really big guy, 360-pound guy. Steelers were interested in him. He kind of lasts a little bit more than they thought. Jones is expected to get the start against TJ. I think TJ will have his way. Is TJ going to wreck the game? And when I mean wreck the game, I mean he could get 3 or 4 more sacks. Now, he got 3 sacks against the 49ers, and they still lost by 23. So, that may be the difference. But I think that's going to be a huge matchup, too. But kudos to the Browns. In the past, when they lost guys, they put stiffs out there that the Steelers ran all over. It'll be interesting to see how Jones does against the Steelers defense.
You're going to have to keep Minka back helping the pass defense. I think he can't be on the line as much like he was.
Well, he had to because he couldn't stop anybody. So.
Oh yeah, but you've got to establish that the defense, the linebackers and the line can keep Chubb reasonable. They're gonna need help making sure Watson doesn't light up that secondary.
I thought it was interesting, that year that they got blown out by the Cowboys, they ended up making the AFC title game. The second game, Paul, of the year, they played Washington at home. Don't know how Washington finished up, but the Steelers won 14-13. So they were able to rebound, right?
This could be. I feel like if the Steelers are going to win, it's going to have to be one of those low-scoring games.
Okay. Now, the second game of the year, I think in that year that they lost the Browns 51-0, I think they lost to Cincinnati or Houston. Because remember, they lost the first 2 games. It was like a combined 88-10 or some crazy amount. So they didn't come back that second game. But again, they actually lost their third game at Jacksonville and they ended up being 11-5. So, hope is.
And I think with that, I think just remembering that, let's say they can pull off the win against the Browns, then you go on to play the do we play the Titans or Texans and then the Raiders? So you've got 2 winnable games there after that. So you could quickly swing this to a 3-1 start. But you got to get this one.
Yeah, but the thing that scares me, Raiders beat the Broncos. Broncos aren't that good this year.
No.
Ravens pretty tough. I don't know if it was yay Texans or boo Ravens. I'm not sure what happened, but it's different, man. And again, the first game we can't overreact and everything, but man, that second and third game, I mean, Steelers need to win. It's kind of tough.
Yeah,
So,
if they go off to a 0-4 start,
oh,
this season's going to get away from them pretty fast.
and I'm not saying you tank for a quarterback or anything, but we talked last year about, okay, they were winning, they weren't turning the ball over. You've got to come to realization, what are you going to do? Because you can't have Canada and Kenny Pickett. And I know a young quarterback can't have 50 different offensive coordinators. I get that. I understand that. But status quo cannot happen. Is Matt Canada your Pickett your guy? I'll end up. This is going to make you mad, but I thought this was kind of funny. Fansided has a story saying, what if Kenny Pickett's not the answer? 3 Kenny Pickett replacements should already be eyeing, which made me laugh. They said if they replace Kenny Pickett in free agency, how about Kirk Cousins? What do you think about that?
No.
Now, it would have to be at the end of the year. I mean, Kirk Cousins is signed and he's playing.
He's what, 63 years old? I mean,
well, the argument, this is interesting. Cousins, over his career, has completed 66.8% of his passes. His touchdown to interception ratio is actually better than Josh Allen. How about that?
Oh, he's really good. But I don't see how this just rewinds us about 3 years. I mean, how is this helping us move into the future?
Well, I think the argument you can make is if you really thought Kenny Pickett wasn't the answer, what do you do this year? Putting in Mitch isn't going to help, or Mason Rudolph's not going to help. I mean, what do you do? It was interesting, but I go back to my argument for earlier in the podcast. I don't think the Steelers know if they want to be a running team or not, but they're saying he could be a more perfect game manager or quarterback. Well, I don't blame Kenny Pickett for that. I don't think the Steelers know if they're going to be a running team or not. The other 2 picks kind of made me laugh. Jared Goff, I know he's played better lately for Detroit, but or Baker Mayfield. How about that? Be Baker Mayfield's 15 in like 2 years if they got him.
Oh, he looked pretty good over the weekend.
Yeah, but
Kenny Pickett is going to be fine. He is our guy moving forward. If we're tanking for somebody this year, it's tank for that offensive lineman that we still apparently need.
Well, speaking of that, they had some draft picks, and they said, look, there's no way the Steelers are going to finish bad enough to get the first overall draft pick. I agree with that. I mean, if this South, they're not the worst team in the league, even if this goes completely south. And Caleb Williams is expected to be the first draft pick anyway. Shedeur Sanders, we talked about in our podcast meeting. They're saying, what if they drafted Shedeur Sanders from Colorado?
No. and nothing against him. I'm just, if we don't deal with this line, we could have Patrick Mahomes and we're going to struggle.
Get this. His freshman year with Jackson State, 67.9% of his passes, 278 yards. His sophomore year, 70% of his passes for 307 yards. Obviously he joined the Power 5 conference, a lot different than Jackson State. Through 2 games, averaging 77.5% of his passes for 452 yards a game. 6 touchdowns, no receptions. How about that?
It's a great start. Behind this offensive line, he's running for his life.
Yeah. Michael Penix was the other guy that suggested. He's played for Indiana. He's now with Washington. He's not bad. I don't get excited about Michael Penix. I'll put it that way. And I'm with you. Shedeur Sanders could be great. Let's give him a few more. This was something that kind of made me interested. It was interesting. Arizona's kind of tanking this year to get a number 1 draft pick. Kyler Murray could be available for trade. What do you think about Kyler Murray?
I I'm fine with Kyler Murray. I don't. I think any conversation about switching quarterbacks now is ridiculous.
Right. I agree.
So I have nothing. I if he was our guy, I'd be perfectly happy. I feel like our offensive position players, I feel like we're in good shape. They're young, they're gonna need some time, but we're still clearly lacking some big pounds of flesh to protect them and give them opportunities to do what they need to do.
Well, here's the conundrum they got faced now. I think they made a mistake of either Kenny Pickett or the offense or whoever read the hype and said, "Man, we the media loves us. We're pretty good." I think they need to realize you got to prove on the field, but don't freak Kenny out and say, "Oh man, you're out of here." We're bringing Kirk Cousins in. I think,
Yeah.
however,
No.
Steelers need to realize you got to push this guy for him to be better, and if he sinks, maybe you got to look somewhere else. But you can't not coach him. Coach him. It's his second year.
I mean,
Yeah.
are we forgetting how bad Ben kind of was initially?
Well, Paul, let's be honest. Ben was so-so his last couple of years. He was probably so-so because of all the great things he did for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh didn't want, I think Pittsburgh was nervous to approach him. And, I think Ben, he found faith. I think he was a nice guy. I think there was a professional pride that he was probably a hard approach to say, "Hey, man, don't throw it here," or take the sack or take the incompletion, and it's fine. I mean, Ben's been there forever. I know it can be tough. Think about you're in the church. I'd say business. That sounds weird, but you're working with church, and there's probably churches out there if a pastor's been there for 30 years. Sometimes it's hard, a little uncomfortable to approach him with even correction or whatever. Well, same way with NFL. But Kenny Pickett's been there for 2 years. You don't need to start screaming at him. But
I mean, look, when Ben started, I mean, that's where Ben ended up at that elite level. Where did he start? As a guy, I mean, he started as Brock Purdy, a guy who had the perfect environment to just don't screw it up. Just give it to the bus, let the defense do its thing, just don't mess it up.
I would,
And Kenny's not being put in that situation yet.
I would think a low-scoring game. Maybe it's that 13-10 that we talked about before. Mind if we wake up Tuesday and Kenny Pickett threw it 20, 25 times a game. I know that's not super sexy. I know it's not our dreams of the Steelers winning by 40, but that might be how you win right now. But I have no confidence they're going to do that. If it was 46-10 in terms of passes, or I don't know, man. It's very strange. Well, we're over. This has been good. This has been good therapy. I'm just gonna have this nervous apprehension before Monday to see what happens. Either we're gonna be like, man, yeah, game one was a mess, but hey, we're back to normal, or we're gonna be. I mean, I like losing the Browns whenever it would happen. I mean, the Steelers could look great and lose the Browns, and I'd still be despondent. So, yeah,
Again, if that happens and we go 0-2, the next two games are very, very more winnable than these first two. You can very quickly be back to 2-2, hit the reset, start over, move forward.
Well, the Steelers never really, we talk about, they could be 9-1. They got a good schedule. Steelers always get a little goofy at the beginning of the year, too. So you never know. But one other thing funny, Kyler Murray's an interesting idea. The other two guys they suggested as trade options, Dak Prescott, you ever love or hate him. I kind of get Dak Prescott. He's not that terrible option. They're suggesting Mac Jones of New England.
Why?
I gotta admit, I'm not super crazy about Kenny Pickett right now, just to be honest with you. I'm not sure if Mac Jones now. I mean, even after the first game. I mean, if the Patriots would just say, hey, Chris, your clearly responded by Kenny Pickett. Here's Mac Jones. I'd be like, for Kenny Pickett. I don't know if that's a good trade. I mean, Kenny Pickett right now than Mac Jones, right?
Yes, Pickett is going to be fine. Just everybody calm down.
Well, and again, he doesn't have to look like Pat Mahomes, but just don't turn the ball over. Man, a Brock Purdy stat line, I'll be saying Pickett's praises. And Brock Purdy didn't have that great of stats from Sunday. I mean, he didn't turn the ball over. That's what you got to do. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Hey, any other thoughts about the Steelers?
No, just everybody calm down. It's going to be all right.
Hey, we usually do promos on the Etc. show. Anything going on in your life?
No.
Okay. I got to talk a little bit about my work. Mahoney Mayor's, my goodness, all kinds of neat coverage going on. Check us out each day. You can subscribe for free or you can donate money. A lot of good things going on there. Hey, check our football poll. We're picking out a football athlete of the week. Paul, we're up to almost 40,000 votes. It's really cool. Vote.
Yes.
I joked on the company Facebook page. I thought I was going to get in trouble for it, but no one said anything. Vote early, vote often. We're not like the we can commit election fraud in this one, so you don't have to worry either way. Yeah, so do that. That's great. Yeah, we did not have our earlier podcast tonight, but Paul, you and I, what did we talk about earlier tonight? I can't remember now. Oh,
Taylor Swift beat reporter.
You could be a beat reporter for Taylor Swift, and what else did we talk about? The Packers. They had a bar in Green Bay said, hey, if the Jets lose, you can drink for free, and everyone got excited when Aaron Rodgers got hurt, and everyone got mad when the Jets won. They had to pay for their drinks, so we talked about that too. So, all right, well, man, it is late. I am tired. I got to get up early, so let's call it a night. Paul, as always, thanks for everything. Joe will be back soon. Joe's in a play right now, and sometimes when you're in a play, it's kind of hard to do everything in one night. So, but Joe will be back soon. For Paul, this is Chris. Thanks for checking us out. Have a great night, everybody.